part. So let's get this back up here to make sure everything is going smoothly. Just because, well, that's the exact reason why I bring this up is not just for the chat, but also to make sure that it is actually going well. So let's get that up here and get the sound check. And once I get that sound check, sure, yes, there is sound this time for sure. So we're good to go on that. So we're in the middle of a boss battle, which I believe to be the final fight of Xenoclash 2. So I continue with that, and assuming that I do finish the game, which looks very likely. Like I don't know the exact end for the game, so I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to finish it, but looks like it's going to be the end in this sit down. I will do my sort of final impressions, my final thoughts on the game once I get to that, and then after that, as I said in the previous part, or in the previous sub part, there will be I'll have an announcement. This is assuming that I do get to the end, but right. If I don't get to the end, and I'll have to do another sit down. The game continues on. You know, whenever the end does come, that's when I'll do the final thoughts and then the announcement after that. Right. So I think we're all good to go, and I can continue from here on out. So I'll just go into this battle without any further ado, and yeah, let's give it a go. Alright, so if I can skip this cutscene, I probably will, because I already saw this. This will be recorded in the previous part. Oh yeah, we already saw this part here. This is essentially where the game saved before I had to quit out earlier than I intended. So if I can skip this cutscene, then I will. If not, then I'll let it play. Let's see. Looks like I can skip it. Alright, so that is already part of the previous part, and essentially this is where I had to quit.
They are low. We can expect this behavior from them, but you are far worse. You should know better.
Alright, how about I aim correctly?
So high and mighty, don't you push the fate of others as well? Are loftier goals all the excuse you need? It makes all the difference.
So I think I'm feeling the hits that the other golem is feeling, essentially. Kind of a tough battle to do. Or how about get some sun action here? That seemed to work pretty well. Yeah, I can't get too many punches in because so much stuff going on. So I'm not sure how good combos are actually going to be here. Might just need to do like basically focus on like single powerful hits rather than any sort of special combos. Yeah, see, I really can't get too many hits in before he does like that barrier move. Which seems to me like further proof that the whole combo system in this game is kind of tough to really implement in the middle of combat. Just seems like sure that the whole complex system is there, but it doesn't end up really mattering because of how hard it is to actually implement well in combat. Okay, slowly making our way.
Even you, Coxtay, even you had been sleeping too long. You had to come to Xenozoic and do something, anything.
Oh,
Not because
okay.
you care about the Xenos, we know you don't. And to defend borders, people are too primitive to cross anyway, forever. How many Xenos could pass the mountain range? Sail distances unfathomable for their technology. No wonder Nuwatote and Samorote dried up on their thrones.
A lot more going on here. Oh, they disabled that, okay. But now I only have the Sun Moon Gauntlet. Go. Kinda need a health drop here. That's a little bit better. Alright, I see. I have to break this like this. Gotta wait for it to charge. I think the combo system is something that I brought up periodically as I've been trying to really make use of it. And I can discuss it a little bit more once once I'm out of combat here. Ah, man, it's really difficult to actually land anything on this guy.
And in a moment committed to a lifetime of service. No, several lifetimes. And maybe I could, if the best of my people feel like to share the burden with me. Nahuatlte's crimes were unforgivable. You killing him is unforgivable.
Alright, thankfully, that one dropped health. Oh boy. Okay, so... keep in mind too that I am I'm not playing the game on a on the highest difficulty, so that could also affect my the necessity of me having to rely on more complex combos. But there's also, there's more beyond that. There's the fact that you have to, there we go, let's cut this wire here. There's more beyond that. There's still the fact that you have to you're limited by that yellow meter, essentially, the special attack meter. And that further makes it difficult to pull off those more intense combos.
If none of us survive, if none of the 4 golems live, replacements will come to Cenozoic. What's the last you heard of the outer world? That could happen in decades. It might never happen at all. It could also happen tomorrow. Sotilte, I am not going to win this fight. And I see that I cannot trust you to carry out our mission. I will best serve our makers by forcing them to send a replacement. Coxtay.
Alright. Looks like the North Golem is kind of back on our side. Their motivations for helping or hindering us still mostly a mystery, I think, mostly to convey the lack of understanding for our characters. They don't really understand the outside civilization that they now know of. Conflict of the golems having a duty to fulfill and their, I guess, their ethical quandary or ethical questions regarding the treatment of the Xenos. So, okay, now that basically marks the end of the story and the end of the game, what's going to happen to the Xenos is and the Xenozoic sort of land. The Xenozoic land, kind of a question mark, but regardless of what's going to happen, there's going to be some sort of change, and I would guess that Ghat and Rimat will probably want to venture back out and look back at the civilization that they discovered on the outside of their small world, their small land, and perhaps free the people from their zoo. So the story kind of ends abruptly there, I think. Although it does provide some resolution, it doesn't really. It leaves a lot open to what could happen. Not that I don't think it's trying to set up a sequel or anything like that, but most of the revelations and most of the initial problems that started off the adventure were solved over the course of the game. We already dealt with the initial problem with Father Mother put on trial. We dealt with that, and that was a few parts ago, I think. We dealt with all the children's real parents. Essentially, that problem was solved, but then there was the greater issue of the Xenozoic and the Xenos being kept in basically what was like a zoo, or their entire society is cordoned off from the rest of the world because the rest of civilization doesn't believe they are civilized enough to be incorporated with the civilization, or the grander civilization, as well as even knowing about that civilization. So questions about that and how they will interact from here on out. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. Alright, so But that's the ending that we have. I'm gonna lower the music volume a bit so I can talk more about that. So yeah, there wasn't much to the left of the game. I did suspect correctly that that was the final boss, and that we would see the end right then and there. Now I know I didn't do 100% of everything that I could have done in the game. That there are some secrets left, but as far as a reasonable first playthrough, I think that is, I'm satisfied with the experience. And if I were to play the game ever again, then maybe I would work on a 100% of the campaign, or find all the secrets and unlock all the doors. There was that room in the desert there that where you have to find enough cubes to open the door. That's probably what I would do in like a second playthrough. I might also play the game in a harder difficulty. I was playing on normal just to see if that combat would require me to do the more elaborate combos. That's something to consider as well. I guess I could talk as part of my final thoughts of the game. The combat system in here is one of the primary ways to interact with the game and interact with the world around you. That's like a huge part of Xenoclash 2, as well as the original Xenoclash, is that first-person combat system. Now, if you check the tutorial, you can learn a lot of very complicated combos, multi-part combos that you probably could learn and try to implement in combat. However, as far as actually making use of those elaborate combos in the actual game, in the main game, the campaign, I came with mixed results. I never really went too far past just the basic punches and sidestepping, things like that. I did do some more elaborate stuff with that, but none of the crazy stuff that you actually see in the tutorial and the prologue here. I think that there are multiple reasons for that. One is actually, as far as normal difficulty goes, the combat isn't really that demanding to really incentivize you to use the more elaborate combos, even though they are there and it's possible to learn of them. So you really can just stick with the basics, which there are positives and negatives for that. One is that it makes the game too easy, and you kind of, it's not just that it's too easy, but you kind of run out of interesting things to do in the combat. At some point in the game, the combat just becomes less interesting, just because you don't have to get into those more complex combos. You don't have to master it, really. Even though they are there. Now, if the game incentivized me to get deeper into that combo system, as well as actively taught me about it, actively reinforced those combos and those more elaborate attacks, then that'd be something else. It would be keeping the combat refreshing and interesting throughout the experience. But just because those more elaborate combos are in the game and possible to master them, does not mean that they actually contribute their fair share in making the combat interesting. I think the game has to also pull its own weight to try and get you, or incentivize you, motivate you to really delve into the combat, which it really doesn't do. Part of that is just the difficulty on normal, not that demanding, and also because it just lets you kind of figure it out on your own pace. This is like basically an informal disconnect between the tutorial and the campaign. There needs to be some more tutorializing in the campaign proper, I think, to try and keep you refreshed and reminded of those more elaborate combos, and having you use them or implement them on the fly when you need them. Also, another big inhibitor to using going too deep into the combo is that yellow meter you saw up top, that basically a special attack meter. Once you use once you do your fair share of those special attacks, you run down that meter, and then you can't do them anymore. You have to go back to the basics. So the game inherently limits your ability to do the more elaborate combos, outright. So that's just another way of de-incentivize you to even use that